Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Engineer Your Energy. I'm Caroline Milton of Milton Coaching Collective. Each week on Thursday, I bring you a lunch and learn that talks about how to prevent burnout, increase your energy levels, and overall improve your productivity. That's part of the work that we do at Milton Coaching Collective. And right now, we're working on helping you develop your 2023 burnout prevention plan to help retain employees, increase engagement, and really ensure that you're delivering business results well into the new year. If you're interested in learning more about our methodology to building a burnout prevention plan, you can message me directly or leave a comment on this video and we can set up some time to discuss. But today we're talking about an important subject. This is a subject that I gave a training on last week in person, but it's the topic of imposter syndrome. And in particular, what is the relationship between imposter syndrome and burnout? Because the two of them are interconnected. Now, if you've ever felt like you were a fraud, or if you've ever felt like you're going to be found out for being unsuitable for your role or position at work, if you feel like you've gotten where you are as a matter of luck and not hard work, then it's likely that you have experienced imposter syndrome in your career, and you're not alone. Studies suggest that up to 70% of people have experienced this sensation at work at some point in their career. In fact, some of the greatest in their fields have experienced this. The great Serena Williams, who just yesterday announced her retirement, has confessed to these feelings of imposter syndrome, as has Jerry Seinfeld, one of the greatest comedians of all time, has fessed up to feeling that sensation of imposter syndrome. And while research suggests that imposter syndrome might help motivate people from time to time to achieve, there is also ample evidence that the stress it generates can be so draining that it places an intense pressure on our mental health. And we know that the World Health Organization has attributed burnout as a mental health related illness, and in particular, something that is being widely looked at across the world in how burnout is impacting not only our work, but our lives as well. In one 2016 study, for example, it showed that US medical students with feelings of imposterism also tended to demonstrate increased levels of exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and depersonalization. Those symptoms fall right in line with how the World Health Organization defines burnout. So we are seeing this link. A recent study of 10,000 knowledge workers has showed that 42% of these employees believed that they had experienced both imposter syndrome and burnout at the same time. And it makes sense, right? When we have these feelings of imposter syndrome, we tend to work harder, right? That motivation shows up. We have to work relentlessly in order to prove our worth, our value to our organization so that we aren't found out as a fraud. And so we tend to say yes to more tasks and responsibilities, and we tend to put more effort into the work at hand. But also, we shy away from taking risks when we're experiencing imposter syndrome. We're less likely to stretch into new roles, tasks, and responsibilities, therefore stunting our career growth. So, tending to our imposter syndrome is something that we should all be concerned with. And as an organization, it is something that we should be seeking to prevent with our employees, right? You've hired these individuals because of their qualifications, their skills, and how they can contribute to the value of your organization. And so how can we do that to ensure imposter syndrome is not leading to burnout and therefore leading to poor employee retention and poor business results? How can we do this? Well, first and foremost, we need to understand that perfectionism is not expected from any of us at all times, right? We should not be striving for only perfection. In fact, Brene Brown refers to perfectionism as self-preservation. It is a form of ensuring that we're not having to address any shame or guilt that we're experiencing. And as a result, we just constantly drive towards perfection. I want you to instead Get comfortable with being good enough, because being good enough is being great enough. When you're working on a task or role or responsibility at work, you want to make sure that you're successfully addressing the problem, and you want to make sure that it's clearly and distinctly on brand with the organization or with yourself. You want to make sure that quality of work is consistent with or above the level of work that you've produced in the past, and that it's been objectively evaluated by other subject matters experts on hand. So this is producing good quality work, even great quality work, without that absolute emphasis on perfection. I want you to also get really practiced in limiting your catastrophization of your work. So that worst case scenario of how you approach your work. And this is a skill that I work on with individual clients, of making sure that we're relaying back to the facts at hand, right? That we're not allowing ourselves to run away with the best case scenario or the worst case scenario, but that we're only focusing on the facts at hand. I also want you to practice self-compassion. We've been so focused on self-confidence, right? And building self-confidence, but I want you to focus on self-compassion, because when we focus on self-compassion, we constantly pursue growth while accepting that perfection does not have to be a part of that growth. Because if we think about it, when have we ever really truly executed something to absolute perfection? Chances are, if we have, it's been pretty rare, and certainly not the direct result of where we are today. Another thing to help combat imposter syndrome is to make it an old friend, right? To acknowledge it and understand that that drive for success, that drive for achievement has helped you to get to where you are today. And you can address that imposter syndrome and say, hello, old friend, it's nice to see you, but let's get to work. Another thing that we can do to battle imposter syndrome is to collectively celebrate the wins. So highlight when we've done really quality work, highlight when we've succeeded as a team, when we've met our goals and objectives collectively, and then also offer peer-to-peer recognition when someone has stepped in, helped us really execute towards those task deadlines and those goals at hand. You can work against imposter syndrome by finding a mentor and by becoming a mentor. Mentorship is an important aspect of work. And if you don't have a mentor, I strongly recommend that you seek out a mentor, either through a professional organization or even through your own organization. But that mentor can provide you valuable feedback on where you are and where you want to go, often in reflection of their own wins and successes in their career. Finding a mentor who has experienced the same challenges that you're facing in your career or similar trajectories can really help you along the way. And along the same lines as that, get really comfortable with feedback. How many of us seek out feedback intentionally? I think it's important that we always are seeking feedback, and that we get really comfortable with not only receiving feedback, but providing it as well. Feedback is a way that we establish trust within an organization when we focus on behaviors and not people, and really ensure that there's that clear and open line of communication. Because imposter syndrome is often driven by an unawareness of where we stand within our organization, consistent feedback can help battle that. So if that's not already embedded in the culture of your work and within your organization, this should be something that you're really working on. How can we train our employees to be not only effectively receiving feedback and applying it, but also providing feedback? And finally, I want you to dedicate time to your excellence, right? Those things that you do really well. I want you to be intentional about setting aside 20% of your time towards the most impactful aspects of your work, the things that provide you the most meaning, and the things that you feel you do really well. Because studies have shown that that 20% mark is the tipping point for overall employee engagement and satisfaction, and to really prevent burnout and imposter syndrome. So dedicate that time to your excellence. These are the suggestions that I have for how you can begin to battle imposter syndrome. I'd love to hear some of your own reflections and experiences by dropping a comment below on this video to open up that dialogue. And I'd also love to know, what's your biggest takeaway from today's episode of Engineer Your Energy? What are things that you can't wait to apply in your own life and in your work as well? I'll be back next Thursday with our next episode of Engineer Your Energy. I hope you join me then. If you haven't already, click like, subscribe, or follow, depending on the platform you're viewing this, to make sure that you get alert every time that I go live for these episodes of Engineer Your Energy. Hope to see you next week. Until then, stay well.